Human beings can be awful cruel to one another. Jim said that bees won't sting idiots, but I didn't believe that because I tried them lots of times myself and they wouldn't sting me. Right is right, and wrong is wrong, and a body ain't got no business doing wrong when he ain't ignorant and knows better. Hain't we got all the fools in town on our side, and hain't that a big enough majority in any town? What's the use you learning to do right when it's troublesome to do right, and ain't no trouble to do wrong, and the wages is just the same? Sometimes you gwine to get hurt, and sometimes you gwine to get sick, but every time you's gwine to get well agin. Stars and shadows ain't good to see by. Now we'll start this band of robbers and call it Tom Sawyer's Gang. Everybody that wants to join has got to take an oath and write his name in blood. Be respectful to your superiors, if you have any. The difference between the almost right word and the right word is really a large matter. 'Tis the difference between the lightning bug and the lightning. I was seldom able to see an opportunity until it had ceased to be one. I have found out that there ain't no surer way to find out whether you like people or hate them than to travel with them. The only way to keep your health is to eat what you don't want, drink what you don't like, and do what you'd druther not. He had discovered a great law of human action, without knowing it, namely, that in order to make a man or a boy covet a thing, it is only necessary to make the thing difficult to obtain. Here was a gorgeous triumph. They were missed. They were mourned. Hearts were breaking on their account. Tears were being shed. Accusing memories of unkinnesses to these poor lost lads were rising up, and unavailing regrets and remorse were being indulged. And best of all, the departed were the talk of the whole town, and the envy of all the boys, as far as this dazzling notoriety was concerned. This was fine. It was worth being a pirate, after all. Huckleberry was cordially hated and dreaded by all the mothers of the town because he was idle and lawless and vulgar and bad, and because all their children admired him so and delighted in his forbidden society and wished they dared to be like him. The elastic heart of youth cannot be compressed into one constrained shape long at a time. I ain't doing my duty by that boy, and that's the Lord's truth. Goodness knows. Spare the rod and spile the child. As the good book says, I'm a laying up sin and suffering for us both, I know. He's full of the old scratch, but laws a me, he's my own dead sister's boy. Poor thing, and I ain't got the heart to lash him. Somehow, every time I let him off, my conscience does hurt me so, and every time I hit him my old heart most breaks. Tom appeared on the sidewalk with a bucket of whitewash and a long-handled brush. He surveyed the fence, and all gladness left him, and a deep melancholy settled down upon his spirit. 30 yards of board fence 9 feet high. Life to him seemed hollow, and existence but a burden. Ah, if he could only die temporarily. Tom was a glittering hero once more, the pet of the old, the envy of the young. His name even went into immortal print, for the village paper magnified him. There were some that believed he would be president, yet, if he escaped hanging. There was no getting around the stubborn fact that taking sweetmeats was only hooking, while taking bacon and hams and such valuables was plain simple stealing. And there was a command against that in the Bible. So they inwardly resolved that so long as they remained in the business, their Pharisees should not again be sullied with the crime of stealing. I could forgive the boy, now, if he'd committed 1,000,000 sins. He was not the model boy of the village. He knew the model boy very well, though, and loathed him. Oh, they'd just have a bully time. Take ships, and burn them, and get the money and bury it in awful places in their island where there's ghosts and things to watch, and kill everybody in the ships, make 'em walk a plank. They don't kill the women, They're too noble. And the women's always beautiful, too. Work consists of whatever a body is obliged to do, and play consists of whatever a body is not obliged to do. Often, the less there is to justify a traditional custom, the harder it is to get rid of it. The minister gave out his text and droned along monotonously through an argument that was so prosy that many a head by and by began to nod, and yet it was an argument that dealt in limitless fire and brimstone, and thinned the predestined elect down to a company so small as to be hardly worth the saving. You only just tell a boy you won't ever have anybody but him, ever, 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 and then you kiss, and that's all. Anybody can do it. They said they would rather be outlaws a year in Sherwood Forest than President of the United States forever. As you perceive, the only person responsible for the couple's offense escaped, and not only escaped but became the executioner of the innocent. No creature can be honorably required to go counter to the law of his nature. Man is without any doubt the most interesting fool there is, also the most eccentric. He hasn't a single written law, in his Bible or out of it, which has any but just one purpose and intention: to limit or defeat the law of God. The Bible has this advantage over all other books that teach refinement and good manners, that it goes to the child. It goes to the mind at its most impressible and receptive age. Your country and mine is an interesting one, but there is nothing there that is half so interesting as the human mind. I have been studying the traits and dispositions of the lower animals, so-called, and contrasting them with the traits and dispositions of man. I find the result humiliating to me. What the insane father required was blood and misery. He was indifferent as to who furnished it. Providentially, that is the word, for the fly had not been left behind by accident. No, the hand of Providence was in it. There are no accidents. All things that happen, happen for a purpose. They are foreseen from the beginning of time. They are ordained from the beginning of time. The human being is a machine, an automatic machine. It is composed of thousands of complex and delicate mechanisms, which perform their functions harmoniously and perfectly, in accordance with laws devised for their governance, and over which the man himself has no authority, no mastership, no control. It is most difficult to understand the disposition of the Bible God. It is such a confusion of contradictions, of watery instabilities and iron firmness, of goody-goody abstract morals made out of words, and concreted hell-born ones made out of acts, of fleeting kindness repented of in permanent malignities. Each human being shall have all of these in him, and they will constitute his nature. In some, there will be high and fine characteristics which will submerge the evil ones, and those will be called good men. In others, the evil characteristics will have dominion, and those will be called bad men. It shows you that when people have left a reproachful vacancy in a contract, they can be as shady about it in Bibles as elsewhere. Many men pray, not many of them like to do it. A few pray long, the others make a short cut. Life was not a valuable gift, but death was. Death was man's best friend. When man could endure life no longer, death came and set him free. Man is an experiment. The other animals are another experiment. Time will show whether they were worth the trouble. It is curious, the way the human mind works. The Christian begins with this straight proposition, this definite proposition, this inflexible and uncompromising proposition: God is all-knowing and all-powerful. Human history in all ages is red with blood, and bitter with hate, and stained with cruelties, but not since biblical times have these features been without a limit of some kind. Adam and Eve entered the world naked and unashamed, naked and pure-minded, and no descendant of theirs has ever entered it otherwise. All have entered it naked, unashamed, and clean in mind. They have entered it modest. Kings cannot ennoble thee, thou good, great soul, for one who is higher than kings hath done that for thee. But a king can confirm thy nobility to men. But when weariness finally forced him to be silent, he was no longer of use to his tormentors, and they sought amusement elsewhere. That which I have seen, in that little moment, will never go out from my memory, but will abide there, and I shall see it all the days, and dream of it all the nights, till I die. Would God I had been blind!